evening. Good to have you with us on the second edition of the Urban Debate for tonight. Now, viewers, we've spoken a lot about the healthcare aspect of dealing with coronavirus. We've spent hours discussing the healthcare aspect, the economic aspect. We've also spoken about what government facilities need to be there, what the policy needs to be like, and even the way forward. But there is one aspect that Mirror Now has repeatedly also spoken about, and we thought today is a good time to once again bring it up, is the impact on you and me, on those who are sitting in our homes and have been in our homes now for 2 weeks, if not more. Remember, many of us actually were working from home and staying at home even before the official lockdown began. And so for many people, they've been constrained to the premises of their own residence, those four walls now, for 3 to 4 weeks. That is a lot. There is a complete disconnect in terms of physical interaction with other people outside those who may be living in your houses. There is so much of, challenging news all around us about what's happening with coronavirus the world over and in our country. Sometimes we are worried about getting the next round of essential supplies. When should we step out? How should we protect ourselves? Then we hear news about somebody that we know who may have fallen ill. Will they have corona infection or not? What if somebody tests positive? There are so many issues around us, bearing on us, having an impact on our strength, on our emotional quotient, on our mental peace. And it is important to even address that. It is important to also sometimes take a step back and think about how we are doing and how we're dealing with this. And especially now, because we may be in 2 weeks of the lockdown with 1 more week to go, but we've just had an exhaustive discussion and everybody seems to be of the opinion that this lockdown may continue, if not as a blanket lockdown with many, many restrictions. So a lot of us may still have to be at home even after April 14th. Now, how do we prepare ourselves for that? What should we be watching out for? Let's talk a little bit about mental health as well, viewers, in these challenging times. And let's say good evening to the panelists who are joining us right now. Dr. Santosh Chaturvedi, Senior Professor with the Department of Psychiatry at NIMHANS, joins us from Bengaluru. Dr. Prakriti Poddar, mental health expert and Managing Trustee for the Poddar Foundation. Dr. Amit Malik, psychiatrist and co-founder of Inner R. And Dr. Rashmin Cholera, a psychiatrist, also joins us this evening. Dr. Chaturvedi, let me begin with you. Thank you for speaking with us. Different people obviously would react to these situations and these circumstances differently, but it is bound to have an effect on one and all when you are constrained to 4 walls over a long period of time, isn't it?
Yeah. I didn't get your question because it didn't carry. Can you just repeat?
No, my question was very simply and put that obviously it is bound to have an impact on everybody who's been in this state of a lockdown or work from home scenario. Social distancing is not something we were used to at all. Now, what kind of problems could it lead to emotionally and psychologically speaking?
Yeah, thank you, Tanvi, and I'm glad to be on this panel. I would say that, well, let's look at both the sides. On one side, let's look at the positive side, is about the safety. And as you see in the media till today morning or today evening, the reports of the pandemic and the damage it has caused in the West are very, very troublesome to hear. What's happening in the US, what's happening in the Europe, in Spain and Italy, and what's happening in the country. I mean, we have still not reached a plateau. So on one hand is the safety. And like you said, when you find one of your family members or friends who start developing cough or fever, and you start worrying about what it is going to be like. So that is, on one hand, is the positive thing about safety. On the other hand, as you are saying, that people have been locked down and people are unable to move out. They are worried about groceries. They are worried about school children. Initially we used to talk about that it's a good opportunity to spend quality time. But quality time, the good thing about quality quality time is it is always short. Now we have quantity time, and the quantity time is something which is very difficult to cope with. So there is, if you see in the last 2 weeks, there have been stages. The initial stage was one of fear, that what is this happening? Why are people dying? Why are people getting infected, rapidly across the globe? Then came the stage when people started adapting to it. People started working from home. Students started learning from home. The teachers started having online classes. Even children started having online music classes and other games and other things. So people have started adapting. And you are right, to a certain extent, people are getting maybe feeling fed up that, what is this which is going to happen? What is the future of this? See, it is the uncertainty which is more boggling. On the other hand, we have this abundant news all the time. When we say, what is in sight and mind is what troubles. Now, in the media, the 90% or 95% of the news is on corona and the different aspects of it. So that scares people. So on one hand, there is the safety issue. On the other hand, the difficulties of it. People find it very difficult to move out. So this is about normal people. What about people who have other health problems, like diabetes, hypertension, arthritis, chronic illness, even mental illness, and that is a big difficulty for them to be able to cope with this sort of a lockdown. So these are difficult times. I'll agree with that. But another good thing which has happened is that the government has become health conscious. The public has become health conscious. The amount of health which the media has given to people is abundant. People were never so health conscious in the last many decades. So they become aware of hand washing, coughing, sneezing, various things, keeping a distance, not shaking hands with people. So there are a lot of things which are there, which have happened. There are good things, and of course, there are things which are, more and more challenging. I can't think of people enjoying this, so it's very, very difficult to say.
Yes, maybe first few days, it's new, it's unique, it sounds a little thrilling and challenging, yes, but over a period of time you realize that, okay, not everything can be, virtually done. The conversations you can have with people virtually, but that may not be enough. Others who are so used to having an active life outside, a active fitness life outside, may also struggle just being in those four walls. So there are various aspects to it. Dr. Poddar, what's your own sense? How should one be dealing with this? How do we mentally, toughen ourselves up to say, well, this could actually go on for some more time?
I think one of the key things to recognize is, first of all, accept what's really happening. Because once you've accepted it, you start to sort of deal with the changes that come with it. Without acceptance, you're fighting against it and you're fighting against the flow. And once you're fighting against the flow, there is no capability to actually build your resilience. So I think once you accept it, it's very easy then to, put the steps in place which can sort of take you to a positive state of mind within the circumstances that you are in. So one would have to then start to dissect their day and make sure that all 5 verticals of well-being are taken care of, like the doctor said before, that people are understanding that, it's not only mental health, but your physical health, your nutritional health, all these various things have to come together. And this is a time, of course, for recovery. And I think that when we give ourselves some time, rather than thinking about only catastrophizing the negative, but, taking those moments to sort of identify with what are some of the situations and fears coming up, reaching out to helplines such as ours or other helplines that are there, and really working through some of these problems, I think that it can hold people in good stead.
Okay, we are also asking our viewers that if you have specific queries, if there are any issues that you have and you want to ask our experts who are with us on this panel, please pick up the phone and call us. This is the idea. We want to talk about mental health issues. It's as important as your physical health and the health of this country and the economy. So while we speak about the other issues a lot, this also must be addressed. Dr. Amit Malik, what would your advice be to people right now as we deal with this very, very new and unprecedented setup where everything has been cut off from us. We are living in a whole different world.
I mean, the first thing to say is that just agreeing with what Dr. Chaturvedi said, right? Which is really about thinking about the existing caseloads and people with existing mental illnesses that are struggling a bit. But what we're also seeing on our platform is that a lot of new cases are emerging. Right? For the first time, we're seeing a lot of new cases emerging around health anxiety, around panic, around symptoms around OCD. So a lot of new things are emerging on our platform that our therapists are dealing with, right? And we've seen a huge spike. We've seen a spike both in terms of people accessing the therapist, but also talking about also downloading the platform and almost a 40 to 50% spike from last month to this month, because that shows that the need is growing. Right, so there's clearly a need of new cases and old cases that's clearly going. So our first advice is all our therapists are giving out to people is that maintain some hygiene, right? So stick to a routine. So form a routine and stick to a routine. Try and manage anxiety and identify anxiety and manage anxiety by meditation, by relaxation. So using simple strategies to manage anxiety. Right. Third is connecting with people. I mean, this is about physical distancing. Doesn't have to be about social distancing, right? So connecting with people, and so some of those are something we are talking about. But also, I would just like to mention about the frontline workers who are the real heroes in this story, right? So if you think about it from that perspective, the healthcare workers, the doctors, the nurses, the support staff, they're really putting themselves out there right now, and we want to do everything we can as an ecosystem and our platform ourselves, but also as a whole ecosystem to support them. Right, to really sort of help them out, because there's lots of fear out there. I talk to a lot of doctors every day, and there's lots of fear out there, a lot of anxiety out there about how they'll be able to help people, how they'll be able to support their own families through these anxieties, and what might happen to their health and the system's health. Right, so supporting the healthcare staff and other people at the front line, whether it's the police, the NGOs, in this journey. In which we're all in this together in some ways through the next few months emotionally, along with everything else that the government and other organizations are doing, is very, very critical, essentially.
Correct. No, absolutely. In fact, and we've had a couple of conversations purely focusing on the healthcare workers and their families and how they should be dealing with this. And every day we still get heartbreaking stories. There was this story that came from for example, from Karnataka, from Bengaluru itself today, where a 3-year-old daughter who had not seen her mother for days together because her mother is a healthcare worker, and they're all living separately, so that there is absolutely no possibility of any infection being spread. The father took the daughter on a bike to just at least see the mother from a distance, and that moment, I think, said a lot when both sides actually broke down, and you could see how difficult it can get for families who've been torn apart by this, because our frontline warriors, like Dr. Amit Malik said, are out there and working 24/7 away from their own families. They can't even meet their families in many situations, and obviously it will take a toll on their mental health as well. But let me go across to Dr. Cholera. Dr. Cholera, there are many helplines that have actually now begun, and we would want to tell our viewers as well about it in case they have specific support that they need or requirement that they have. But what kind of largely issues are you seeing, from the people who are calling up?
All my earlier speakers have pointed out very pertinent points, but from the mental health care perspective, we're seeing a whole new angle to this altogether. Now, what we need to understand is when we have a calamity like this or a pandemic like this, or any natural event for that matter, which is quite stressful to the general population at large, the initial phase is always about denial, that no, it cannot happen to us. It's something that may happen to somebody in some other country or something of that sort. But eventually, when the truth has to be accepted, then there is a state of panic. And then initially they will run helter-skelter, as we have seen with so many of our citizenry who are on a panic buying spree, and everybody is hoarding masks and sanitizers and stuff like that. And then over a period of time, there is a lot of information that's available on the internet, on the electronic media, on the news channels, etc. So that information overload comes in, and that leads to a severe precipitance of various anxiety disorders. We have tons of patients who have anxiety disorders to begin with. So this serves to become one more precipitating event or a trigger and their underlying anxiety, if it was never addressed, has resurfaced at this point in time, and people who were anxious already and were on treatment, their illnesses have started relapsing. Now, what happens subsequently is, with the amount of information overload, there is information fatigue. So if you go about asking common man today, you might find that initially everybody was tracking the number of cases which have turned positive, the number of deaths by the hour, by the minute. But now, most of the times, most people might just casually just look at it once a day or maybe twice a day. So that kind of information load sets in. And then there is a little bit of boredom because everybody is cloistered at home, and everybody is not used to being indoors, particularly in the larger metros where you're used to traveling for about 3-4 hours every day. So that kind of social interaction is essential for our mental health as well as our physical health, which has been denied to us now. So that comes with its own set of frustrations. And then eventually, over a period of time, people will start getting more and more worked up, more and more aggressive on account of this. So maybe in the week or in a couple of weeks to come, you will start seeing that happening as well. And then over a period of time, as reality sinks in and we see the gradually increasing number of cases as we are seeing now, we've already crossed 5,000 and we've crossed 150, almost 200 deaths now. So we are yet to hit that peak. And when that sets in, then again there is a second wave of sadness and frustration and a little bit of helplessness coming. So that's a time when we have to become a little bit more proactive. So initially, what we were doing in all the helplines that we are seeking out, patients are seeking out help from, is initially just the panic reaction and the anxiety on account of this kind of an epidemic. But over a period of time, we'll start having a little bit of helplessness creeping in, a little bit of hopelessness creeping in. So that is a time when all the mental health care professionals will have to become a lot more proactive and have to go and help out the general population at large in terms of larger outreach programs and community programs. And eventually, we will have to get back to our clinics, because that's the time when we'll have a deluge of patients coming. So that's something that we have to bear in mind. Social isolation and social distancing is extremely critical to handle a pandemic. But what we need to understand is, along with COVID, other illnesses are still continuing. We cannot ignore those altogether. So at some point, we will have to find the right balance of being able to deal with the other mental and physical illnesses, along with the social distancing, which is mandatory to deal with an infection or a pandemic like COVID.
Okay, because this is a unique situation and an unprecedented kind, I'm asking this question, and maybe Dr. Chaturvedi, we can begin with you. What should I be watching out for in my family members? Are there any signs or symptoms that will, make me perhaps understand that they may be going, it may be having a larger impact on their mental health, and so maybe we need to reach out and get some help?
Well, you might find them in your interaction that they are getting snappy, or they are avoiding to talk to you, or they are showing less interest in their family. It is also likely that they're probably, the sleep is disturbed, they're not eating well, they're getting very easily annoyed and irritated. So you find a sort of a temporary change in their personalities. They were not like that before, and that they're going through strain. If the family interactions are good and communications are good, then people talk about their strains and frustrations and the difficulties they are facing that they might like to talk about. Talking sometimes helps, because it helps in ventilation of your feelings and the frustrations which are welling up. But it's an important point to look at that, whether their interests are going down. And a lot of things have been said about how one could cope with anxiety and depression and strain, but this is actual resilience will come forth. So if they have that, they should be able to do it. There will be ups and downs. So if it is a occasional snappiness or occasional frustration, it is expected. If it becomes a pattern, if it is going more and more, is going out of hand, that is when intervention needs to be done. And also, like I said, if the eating is not good, sleeping is not good, and a person is losing interest, and or reporting openly that they are feeling very tense, or it might be the fear or the panic about the infection, but it can happen, especially as we talked about the health professionals. So if they see a doctor in the neighborhood or a nurse in the neighborhood, and they start getting health anxiety and hypochondriacal feelings, that they will also get it. So these are things which need some attention.
Okay, I think it also is a better way, and it always helps if we get in some viewers with specific queries and get our experts to respond to that. And I think we've got Mr. Deepak Jain on the phone line, and he's calling us from Hyderabad. Mr. Jain, good evening. You have a query?
Yeah, good evening, madam. Hello. Good evening, madam.
Yes, go ahead, please. What would you like to share?
Yeah, I am a migrant from Rajasthan, and I have come all the way from there. I am the sole breadwinner of my family, and if I am staying here for more than 15 to 20 days without any earning any money and all, so much stress and all. We are not from a very big family and all. And I'm having so much mentally, my mother, everyone are also, I'm only sole breadwinner of my family. Mentally, emotionally, I'm suffering so much. Who will take care about this? How will I go through this mental and emotional? If again the extension is increased, what can we do at this time of stage? My family and myself, both are in emotional
Okay.
and... I just would like to ask...
yes, I
Dr.
understand. I
Chaturvedi.
understand. It's an extremely tough time. Okay, let me ask Dr. Chaturvedi if you would want to respond to that. Dr. Chaturvedi,
Yeah.
that's a viewer calling us from Hyderabad, a migrant worker who's lost his livelihood, a sole breadwinner, and like he said, he and his family are going through a lot of mental and emotional stress right now.
I can fully empathize with his situation, and I know these the problems related to the migrant workers has something which has cropped up, over the last week or 10 days or so, and it actually come as quite a shock because when we saw the visuals of thousands of people, being uprooted from the place where they were working, it is a very difficult situation. It reminds us of situations when there are these disasters, like floods or earthquakes where people are uprooted from their homes. So the problems are, I can imagine that it can be very, very difficult, as Mr. Jain was saying. Absolutely. They would be feeling all these, emotional trauma, psychological trauma. The uncertainty is probably much more in them than in other people. But they first need more of, what shall I say, about like a financial, psychosocial sort of a rehabilitation. They have financial troubles. They have troubles about getting food or livelihood and support to their children. They are worrying about their families. So the first thing they need is all these things which are important for day-to-day living. Then about the mental health problems, actually once they get that, would come down to a certain extent. They won't go away. These things would go away only when the situation becomes, back to square one, as it was, let's say, in January or till the end of February, when, things were going on as routine in the country. So till that time, these difficulties are going to be there. For their mental health issues and difficulties, now we have started becoming aware of it. We are trying to set up counseling for them, help for them, but I know that would not resolve all the problem. It is a difficult time for them. It's a difficult time for most people. It is more difficult for them. That also, one can understand. The thing is that this will be temporary. Right. Isn't it? It will end sooner or later. Much sooner we hope than later. But everyone would like to help them in whatever way possible.
Yes. Well, thank you for responding to that, and I hope that helps. And but for Deepak Jain and for hundreds and thousands of people out there, life is going to be extremely tough in the coming days until we are able to come out of this lockdown zone. Let me also go across to Dr. Lalita, who's a physician calling us from Rajkot, but has a specific point to make and question to ask. Good evening, Dr. Lalita. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Lalita Buj. I'm a physician. My husband is also a physician. And I have a 23-year-old son with autism and mental retardation. Now, most of parents who have a child with autism are aware that they have very specific schedules. Like, they don't like any disruption in the routines. Now, obviously, with this lockdown, he is not everything. His whole schedule has gone for a toss because all the familiar people that he sees every day are not there. And the one thing that is highly disturbing him is that he is not able to get out of the house. Now, all I'm asking is that he has severe obsessive compulsive disorders, that he has to go on a specific route for half an hour, and that settles him down for the day. Now, if he doesn't go on that route, it's an OCD kind of thing. So even if I take him in the car within the street, he's not happy about it. So if I take him on that specific route, it takes me just 15-20 minutes, but that calms him down. And as a responsible parent as well as a physician, I know that I would never expose him to any danger of being exposed to the coronavirus. So I will be keeping him in the car. I will not allow him to get out of the car. I will take full responsibility for it. But I have approached the collector's office for a pass for him. But the thing is, on paper, it sounds very funny that I'm asking for a pass to take my son out for a ride every day. It sounds ridiculous on paper, but if I don't take him out, there's a lot of self-injurious behaviors. He's banging his head against the wall, screaming, and he's hitting me. So I'm facing the thing of, devil and deep sea. On the other side, I don't want to break the curfew and I totally agree with the government that it's right. I have no questions about it. But on one side, I'm facing the police, and on the other side, I have to face my son. So I just don't know how to handle him during these lockdown periods.
No, I understand.
So all I'm asking is if I can take him out for half an hour every day in a sterile environment, that is my car, which I'm not going to take to the hospital. So the thing is, it's completely, it has not been exposed to the virus kind of thing. As a responsible person, is it possible for the government? I'm sure I'm not the only parent. There must be so many parents who have kids with obsessive compulsive disorders who are totally disturbed by the whole thing. And as long as it does not hurt anybody else and does not hurt him also, is it possible for some laxity in rules? Because I don't know how I can handle an extended lockdown with this kind of restriction. Yeah.
Yes.
So.
Yes, I can understand. I can understand your concern as well. Let me just see if I can go across to Dr. Amit Malik and ask him this question. Dr. Malik, maybe one solution could be that the government looks at some kind of exemption or relief in such cases. Anything else that comes to your mind that family members and parents can try?
I mean, it's a very difficult situation. Just to start by saying that I completely empathize. It's an extremely difficult situation that Dr. Lalitha finds herself in, and it goes back to my point really. There's two levels of support, right? One is to individuals, but more importantly to healthcare workers themselves, right? And what we are trying to do, what all of us are trying to do is what we can, and then work with the agencies as much as we can. So one of the things that we have done at the platform at NRR is opened our platform to all healthcare organizations, all government and non-governmental bodies who might be supporting cases like this, right? So that they get the right support to be able to support further. So we launched an IS-21 program in the last week or so to support hospitals. That we onboarded hospitals and healthcare workers from there to NGOs to government bodies to be able to support all the resources that might then go and support cases like this. But I think that might go some way in helping that, and the rest of it is then working with the governmental agencies locally and finding out a solution in a lot of cases like this that are difficult essentially. So I think that's what I can suggest is really all of us have to do our part. And support everybody who can then provide further support. So, and that's what we are trying to do is opening up our platform pro bono to all the healthcare organizations, hospitals, NGOs, governmental bodies, frontline workers, whoever we can really help to then provide further help to everybody else around them essentially, and offering sort of free content, free programs, free webinars in different languages.   to do that, basically.
Yes, yes, and I think this is perhaps also a situation where the government may need to look into it, especially if we are considering a possibility of an extended lockdown. Dr. Rashmin, anything else you would like to add? Because we were talking about this earlier as well. For people with existing conditions, for people who need a routine, who need the daytime structured in a certain way, and that doesn't happen when you are in a state of a lockdown. What can be done?
It is a very precarious kind of position, and as Dr. Lalita pointed out, with her son having autism, now they have a typical ritualistic behavior, and he has certain rituals which unfortunately have to do with he going outside the house. So we have quite a few cases who are in this kind of a predicament, and it is a challenge for all of us. But what's important for us to understand is while we have to keep away from the outdoors and try to safeguard our health by not exposing ourselves to potential patients, we also have to provide alternatives for them to be able to keep themselves engaged and occupied during their hours at home. Now, as challenging as it is for certain patients, there is no choice. On the other hand, we have the other extreme where I have a few patients who probably have schizophrenia or some other mental illness on account of which they do not understand the importance of social distancing or being able to keep themselves at home. So we have the kind of situation where they simply wander away. And then I had a couple of patients who had to be brought to the hospital where I work because they were just caught wandering away. And when the police caught them and they asked them, why are you out on the streets when everybody else is supposed to be indoors? They simply had no valid answer. And they said, I just come out for a stroll. And then when they went and inquired about their condition with the family members, they said that he is a mentally ill person and he is wandered away. So we have all kind of challenges, but the bottom line is that we have to come up with some kind of a strategy which may not always work for everybody. It's not one size fits all kind of a solution. So everybody will have their individual sets of problems. But what I would recommend is you need to approach your doctor, you need to approach your therapist, you need to ask from them what are the strategies they can suggest for you on a case-to-case basis? Because all of us have spoken very eloquently on various platforms about the significance of mental health, of physical health, about maintaining a positive attitude and practicing yoga and exercise at home. But it may not be sufficient for a patient who has a mental health condition or a physical health condition also for that matter. So we have to empathize with them, but at the same time, we have to give them viable alternatives and viable strategies. Now, this is something which cannot be done on a generic basis. So we have to recommend to them that they need to go back to their mental health specialists and they need to ask for specific instructions about how to deal with individual conditions. For example, with the doctor who just called us a while back with the son being autistic, the autistic patient always have certain rituals which they need to follow. Now, those rituals are set for a long time, but what's important for us to understand is they didn't come out of nowhere. They eventually formed over a period of time. So you may not always be successful, but one attempt is to replace one ritual with another. So say, for example, you indulge the child into some kind of another ritual which has to be limited to the home environment, then that's one viable alternative as well. So there are various strategies which can be tried on a case-to-case basis, but by and large, there is no alternative for us to stay indoors. So we need to come up with some kind of a general strategy which we can recommend, and I'm sure various bodies are working on that too. But all in all, it has to be a case-to-case based kind of a strategy.
Yes, okay, I agree with you, and perhaps the government needs to come out with a strategy on that. There was another aspect that I wanted to dwell deeper into, and Dr. Prakriti Poddar, let's talk a little bit about interpersonal relationships as well. You know, when you're confined in your own home, and after a few days it may begin to get to you, and you struggle to cope with it. It may also impact how you deal with people around you, your family members, those your partner in the same house. Any advice on how to deal with those kind of difficulties?
So we're actually seeing two different types of cases. We're seeing people getting closer, and we're also seeing people getting more distant because of the constraints that are around them. But we're also seeing a little bit of a rise in abuse, which may be verbal and not only physical. So verbal abuse is also increasing. Anger and irritation and annoyance is increasing. There was a few cases that called in where children are feeling like they are threatened in the home environment, and the fabric is really not holding very secure for them. Because of the lack of space, both women and men in the relationship are not finding their feet, and it's taking them a while to find that grounding where they can be in their own space and be able to be able to work effectively in their own capacity. So you're seeing interpersonal relationships getting quite mixed up. There are some who've kind of put boundaries, but these boundaries have never been set up before a COVID-19 type of situation. Couples were not really spending that much time together. And because they weren't really spending that much time together, the time that they spent, and I think somebody already said quantity and quality, the quality time that they spent, which is effective, is now quantity. And that quantity is difficult for people to manage because they're not used to it. It's a completely different paradigm shift on what a relationship should look like and what their relationship looks like. And without any space in the relationship, it's very difficult for the relationship to be healthy. So it's a conscious, like maybe 100%, each person has to kind of come in with 100% motivation to make sure this relationship can be successful. And it requires a lot of a commitment on both people's part to be able to make this relationship healthy.
Okay. In fact, there is a specific query that I have, and Omkar is on the phone line calling us from Mumbai. Omkar, go ahead, please. What would you like to share?
Madam, I was good evening to everyone. I was looking your show currently right now, and we are here by discussing the problem related to the people who are sitting at home. But we should also discuss the mental health regarding the people who are working in the field right now. Is there are people who are currently serving, like there are policemen are there, like medical teams are there, like bankers are there. They have to go and serve, and there is a kind of what we can say. They are also having a fear. They are also having a mental tension. So this kind of things also must be discussed, and their mental health must be taken into consideration.
Are you in such a field, or do you have a family member who is currently, still going out to work?
No, madam, I'm going to work, and currently I'm talking to my colleagues also and everyone, to people also, and there is a kind of what we can say, kind of fear is there, which person is walking in the bank or which person we are talking right now, and the people are also having a kind of fear in their mind. So this should also be a kind of challenge for the people also, and this should be also taken into consideration. Their mental health is also important.
Yes. Firstly, let me just say, Omkar, thank you for what you are doing. And thank you for being brave enough to go out there every day and still doing your job. There are many in various kind of essential services who are still going out and stepping out, and in a way, no matter how many precautions you take, there is still a fear and there is always a risk involved. So thank you for doing that. Let me see if our experts can respond on that. Dr. Chaturvedi, would you want to respond to what Omkar is saying? And many others are also going through, the field workers and the stress that they go through every day.
Well, I should thank Mr. Omkar for being so considerate about this, because this is an important part. This is the frontline workers who are helping the society, and if they get affected, and they also have to go through the same quarantine, whether it is of 14 days or 28 days, and be on observation and isolation and all that. So we are already seeing that there are hospitals are closing down because the staff are getting affected, and many times the whole teams are getting affected. When I came to know that one of my doctors was having cough and fever and needed a consultation from the Rajiv Gandhi Chest Disease Hospital, I before testing myself, I actually did a self quarantine of myself at home till she got her results, and we turned out to be negative, and only then I could come out. So people are going through a lot of stress, and we are aware of that. We are trying to reach out to them and to provide support to them, because unless we care for the caregivers, and here we are talking about the formal medical and not only doctors and nurses, even the police force and other people who are doing the emergency services for the public, whether it's a grocery shop or it's someone, everyone is exposed and they're taking a risk. So we would like to support them, and we're trying to support them, and we encourage them to look after their health, as well as they should not ignore any simple sign. What has happened with this fear and panic is that people are trying to hide their fevers. People are trying to take some medication so that the cold and the cough symptoms can go down. Otherwise, they think that they would be sent into self-quarantine or they would be sent into isolation. They will be cut off from their families. So a lot of myths have been propagated, and which is not doing good to anyone. One has to be careful about one's health, because not only you, but your family members also become at risk if you don't look after yourself. So I fully agree with Mr. Omkar that it's not only the mental health of the doctors and nurses and the police people and all other people who are working at this particular period, but it's also their physical health, and one should look after that also.
Okay, thank you so much for responding to that query. Let me quickly go across to Aruna, who's on the phone line calling us from Hyderabad. Good evening. Go ahead, please. Okay, I see. We seem to have a tricky line with Aruna, who is calling us from Hyderabad. We're just going to get back to her in just a bit. Suffice to say, viewers, there are many aspects of it, some of which our experts have brought out in great detail, from how it will impact you personally, individually, your mental health, and, the stress on you and emotionally speaking as well, to how you then deal with people around you, and that could get impacted. Like, we also had Dr. Podar point out to the fact that it's leading to a rise in even domestic abuse, verbal abuse to begin with, in other cases even more so, and that's really unfortunate. So there are various aspects and challenges that one must keep in mind. But if I can just go back to the point that we had raised earlier, and a viewer who had called in with that query, Dr. Amit Malik, any specific advice and that you have for the field workers, for the healthcare workers, the policemen, the bankers who are still going out there doing their job, especially in the healthcare field, where family members are actually staying away from the workers, and they don't even get to see their faces for days together?
So my first advice would be, I must start by thanking everybody who's going out and doing this work, right? It's very, very important work. And we are very committed at NRR to trying to help these workers as much as we can. But my first advice is to don't brush away or push aside how you're feeling, right? These anxieties, some of these fears are real, right? And these are hard times, right? And everybody who's doing their frontline work is doing really hard work for the rest of us, and it's completely understandable that the degree of emotional anxiety that comes along with this. So seek help. Right? There's a platform like ours at NRR, but there are other platforms, there are other helplines. A lot of hospitals, a lot of government organizations have opened these opportunities to seek help. Don't be shy. Don't try and brush away the help. Seek help from and connect with your family and friends, at least emotionally, as well as through other medium, if you have to physically distance yourself. So stay connected, seek help, and go and talk to somebody. Right? We provide therapy in 7 to 8 languages on our platform, but there are other helplines as well. So go talk to somebody if you feel that you're feeling very stressed or anxious. Don't just keep it inside. And you're already dealing with a lot. Don't just keep it inside. Go and talk to somebody and seek help. Start with a family member, but don't be shy of seeking more professional help, more professional support at this time, because you are dealing with a lot, and it's just right that you actually get the help, all the help you need for the work you're doing for us right now.
Yes, in fact, Dr. Rashmin, I would want you to come in here as well and speak a little bit more to our viewers about using these helplines, especially for those who may have actually before this never sought professional help, but now are finding themselves in a place where they should perhaps speak to somebody.
Right, you're absolutely right. In fact, I'm a part of a couple of such helpline programs, and we have seen an amazing amount of response from the very first day these helplines have started. And what you said is absolutely spot on. Many people were dealing with their own issues for a long time, but they have never really felt got the opportunity to come out with it. So very often these kind of situations, these kind of calamities may actually be a watershed moment for many of them, and very often they may actually learn to address their own anxiety, own issues, and they have started seeking help on these helplines. And initially, these helplines were meant to just help people deal with COVID-related issues. But what we've seen is almost half the callers we have on these helplines have started addressing their other issues as well, which are well beyond the current COVID issue. And this entire calamity has only served to help them accept the situation that they were dealing with, accept the problems they were dealing with, and it probably has been an opportunity for them as well to come out in the open, so to say, and to be able to seek help for their mental health issues. So very often, these kind of calamitous situations or deleterious situations can actually be a cloud with silver lining for many of these patients. But what I must definitely say is, I'm amazed by the amount of resilience that our population has shown in the face of this calamity. We have lots of patients with tons of mental health issues and anxieties and day-to-day challenges on account of it, financial, economical challenges as well. But the amount of response that you see from the common man, not just from the polity or the administration or the organization, the amount of response you see, the amount of support that you are seeing, is a huge tsunami of support. You have so many people going out and feeding the poor. There are so many health workers who are putting themselves at risk, but at the same time, they are standing shoulder to shoulder with their colleagues. So it's really amazing. And what's important is for us to maintain this kind of a positive attitude. We have to believe in our resilience. They say that the true mark of a person's character is shown at the time of a crisis. And I think in that sense, the Indian population is extremely different from the diaspora across the world. And I'm sure all of my panelists will agree with me that we have had n number of calamities in the last decade. But our population has somehow risen above all of those. And if we continue to have that kind of an attitude, then despite these anxieties which resurface from time to time, all in all, the overall resilience of the population will become stronger by the day. And it's very important that we stand by each other and we continue to encourage each other. So these kind of programs that you have on the television today are a very important contributory factor as well. And we all need to learn to stand together with each other. We need to encourage each other. For example, on the day where we had the national curfew for the first time, I made it a point to go for my rounds in the hospital at 5 o'clock in the evening. Right? Just so I was there with my staff when the entire population of the whole country was going to clap for the mental health profession, for medical professionals as well as the essential service staff. Now, they were so happy for the fact that I was there with them. Because otherwise, normally we only look at doctors, only look at the major members of the polity. But it's these ground workers who are as important a part of it. So it's important that we not just acknowledge their contribution, but we are out there with them. We make every effort to show our support to them. And in that sense, I think our population is doing an amazing job. So it's really inspirational, despite all the calamities and despite all the challenges that we are seeing. At the same time, you're also seeing a side of our population which is absolutely amazing and awesome. So kudos to everybody for that, and a salute to all those guys who are on the field working every single day. All the nurses, all the ward boys, all the support staff. Imagine, despite all these challenges, not one day have we been short of water, not one day do you see any rubbish on the streets, not one day do you see any kind of disruption in the power supplies or the internet supplies. So you realize that everybody is coming together and putting their best foot forward at a time like this. And that is a true mark of our population's resilience and strength. So we need to learn to introspect, see these aspects of our day-to-day lives and take inspiration from it all. At the end of the day, if you're able to do that, then the calamity seems that much less dangerous, that much more achievable, that much more manageable.
Yes, no, yeah, absolutely. And, I've said this often in the last few days as well on the channel, that I think we also need to empathize with the field workers. And sometimes, even if it looks like our life is getting difficult and they're not able to do enough for us, we must ensure that what they're doing is a Herculean task. To manage a country of our size with the population of our kind in a state of lockdown, and like you very rightly pointed out, and to ensure that all these essential services continue. It's fine if one day or 2 day they struggle, they miss something, but as long as the policymakers and the officials and each foot soldier on ground out there is keeping us together, we should really, thank them and be grateful for that. But I just had one more question, if I can go across to Dr. Podar on that. Dr. Podar, how effective is it to also maybe make an effort to ensure that we look out for some positive news, some bit of positive information? We are surrounded right now with news about number of rising cases, about essential supplies running low, or maybe, number of fatalities going up, or the lockdown maybe getting extended. In such a time, does it help to also watch out for some good news, some positive news?
Well, thanks for that question. What I find incredible is really the spirit of, like how you're saying, the spirit of people that have come together. We started the Wellbeing Volunteers Helpline, and literally in about 4 or 5 days, there were 550 volunteers that joined us to be able to help other people in this time of crisis. That's the number one positivity that I see. And it's also helped negate the stigma of mental health that was so high, because now people are talking about it. I mean, everybody here has also mentioned how, people have come out, they've used the helplines, they've used their phones, they've started talking about mental health. And I think that's a huge step in the right direction, because physical health and mental health cannot be divorced, as it was already said. And to keep your mind free of all the negativity, you have to curate the information that you take in. So just like you curate the junk food that you take inside your body, you have to curate the junk media that you take in. Focus on positive media, focus on positive stories, share. So one of the things that we have launched is something that we call mask your face, not your feelings, because at the end of the day, when you're sharing even positive feelings, and I was on the net, and I saw one of my colleagues at Rotary Club has started this platform where it's all about bringing together nostalgic music of the past and, creating positive vibes around that. I think it's very important to create positive vibes, especially now where social media can take things viral. Create things that are positive and that you can take viral. And I'm a thoroughbred optimist. So for me, this question is really handy. And thank you for the question, because we have seen the incredible spirit of India, and I'm so looking forward to more of that happening and us recovering, because there's a study done on pandemics, and they have a quality of optimism that comes along with it. And I think if we could focus on that optimism, I think we have a long happy road ahead of us.
Yes, absolutely. It's going to be a tough battle. We are in the middle of a tough battle, but we hope that soon we emerge victorious from it, together as a country, united and stronger. And of course, once the coronavirus part is done, then will come the economic challenge. And so, yes, it is going to be a long battle, but we can only defeat and win this battle if we are able to acknowledge and address all kinds of issues. So while health is one aspect, physical health is one aspect of it, and coronavirus is one aspect of it, the other is the economic, and equally important is also your and my mental peace, our mental health, people who have existing conditions, taking care of those people as well, ensuring that their needs are met, recognizing what's going around us, people around us, and how this entire unprecedented change is really impacting each one of us. So yes, we should continue to be a lot more kind and empathetic to people around us, because that's all we can do while we are in a lockdown. All we can show is a little bit of support, gratitude, and love to each other. I'm going to thank all of our experts for joining us, and I promise our viewers who have been calling us and who had some more queries, we will have more shows like this where you can call us and share your experience. Just tell us your story if you want to. If you have a specific query, we'll take it up with our experts as well. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.